Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Tuesday, June 1st, 2021. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Texas Democrats thwart Republican voter suppression bill for now. A new report, the NSA partnered with the Danes to spy on our European allies. QAnon Republicans now expecting a U.S. Myanmar-style coup. Don't worry, we got a couple months, though, I think, before that happens. According to a draft memo, Joe Biden to take limited but very helpful unilateral immigration expanding measures. Israeli opposition sees Netanyahu's exit within days. Filibuster reform moves to the foreground as Democrats tee up bills sure to be shot down by Republicans. Biden now seeking an international minimum corporate tax at the G7. The White House budget calls for an effective and essential repeal of the Hyde Amendment. New York State may be close to single-payer health care. With your help. Lastly, major anti-Bolsonaro protests in Brazil. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate, hope you had a good Memorial Day weekend. 3-day weekend, weather not so great in these parts. Hope folks spend some time contemplating the lives that have been lost for and for what in this in the decades, centuries in which we've been waging war very often just for the sake of extracting other people's resources, and how many lives have been destroyed in the in the pursuit of those resources, both in terms of Americans and obviously the people who were subjected to our fighting those wars. There's one or two wars I believe I would have supported contemporaneously. World War II, World War I, probably. But that said, we're back, and with me is Emma Vigeland, also back from her own little battle.
Oh, my God. Well, we're not going to share the details of
I'm not.
The stomach situation.
Okay.
Well, it was not a fun time for me on this long weekend that I ventured on. Actually, by ventured, I mean from the couch to my head into the toilet bowl.
There you go.
How does that sound?
Well, I guess you're now starting to give details of it, but glad to see that you are doing better. Yeah,
as I said, silver lining. I lost some weight this weekend.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's a healthy response.
Yeah. That's. There was another anniversary of sorts that was celebrated actually 100 years ago as of yesterday into today. is the anniversary of the Tulsa Massacre. And this is, we are living in an era where I think that there has been, at the very least, at least in my lifetime, far more understanding and greater awareness of what happened in the years in Reconstruction and post-Reconstruction in this country that have been submerged in terms of the many massacres that have been that took place in this country, essentially with white people angry that black people were getting some form of political representation, some form of wealth in this country. We're talking about really a 50-year period following the Civil War and even after Reconstruction. It culminates in, well, I don't know if culminate is the right word, but the Tulsa Massacre took place in 1921. In the teens, there was a real resurgence. I mean, it had been growing in the post-construction era. But by the time you get to 1920, the KKK had a massive presence in this country. 6 million card-carrying members out of a 100 million population. 6% of the country were avowed KKK members. And I mean, that's it. Maybe it was larger, but so you need to understand that backdrop to what took place with the Tulsa Massacre, and also recall that in the decades prior, really starting in the late 90s, 1890s, the Supreme Court began essentially what we now call as the Jim Crow era. And amongst that was an enormous amount of voting restrictions that were geared towards essentially preventing black people from voting in this country. That era ended in the mid-60s, and in many respects, and with the passage of the Voting Rights Act, and in many respects has been renewed with the Supreme Court essentially debilitating the Voting Rights Act now 8 years ago.
And we're seeing that play out.
And we're seeing this play out. That's what's amazing. Right. So we will start with this clip of a survivor of the Tulsa Massacre. She's 107 years old, I believe.
And Biden met with her.
Viola Fletcher. She was 7. And then we will take a break. And when we come back, we'll talk about those measures that are aimed, or really not aimed. I mean, they're part of bringing back many of the voting rights restrictions that we saw prior to the Voting Rights Act. But here is Viola Fletcher, survivor of the Tulsa Massacre, remembering the event and making the case for reparations. Here it is. She's speaking to the House Judiciary Subcommittee.
I'm a survivor of the Tulsa Race Massacre. 2 weeks ago, I celebrated my 107th birthday. Today, I'm visiting Washington, D.C. for the first time in my life. I'm here seeking justice, and I'm asking my country to acknowledge what happened in Tulsa in 1921. The night of the massacre, I was awakened by my family. My parents and 5 siblings were there. I was told we had to leave, and that was it. I will never forget the violence of the white mob when we left our home. I still see black men being shot, black bodies lying in the street. I still smell smoke and see fire. I still see black businesses being burned, I still hear airplanes flying overhead. I hear the screams. I have lived through the massacre every day. Our country may forget this history, but I cannot. I will not, and other survivors do not, and our descendants do not. When my family was forced to leave Tulsa, I lost my chance of an education. I never finished school past the 4th grade. I have never made much money in my country. State and city took a lot from me. Despite this, I spent time supporting the war effort in the shipyards of California, but most of my life I was a domestic worker serving white families. I never made much money, but to this day I can barely afford my everyday needs. I'm asking that my country acknowledge what has been happened to me, the traumas and the pain, the loss, and I ask the survivors and descendants to be given the chance to seek justice, open the door. For 70 years, the city of Tulsa and its stream of charmers told us that the massacre didn't happen, like we didn't see it with our own eyes. You have me here right now. You see Mother Randall, you see my brother Hughes Van Ellis. We live this history and we can't ignore it. We lost everything that day, our homes, our churches, our newspapers, our theaters, our lives. Greenwood represented all the best of what was possible for Black people in America and for all the people. No one cared about us for almost 100 years. We and our history have been forgotten, washed away. This Congress must recognize us and our history. For Black America, for the white Americans, and for all Americans.
So the Greenwood area that she's referring to is a neighborhood. It was about 35 acres worth of city that was literally bombed from the air, and 300, to the extent that we have any real numbers on this, it is estimated that 300 Black people were killed, and it was part of an ongoing, I mean, this was going around the country. Had been going on in the 1890s. We've had a couple of interviews about people, various, similar massacres. And this, the reparations they're talking about here are, I think she's talking about in terms of Oklahoma. But in terms of Tulsa, but obviously you can extrapolate across. There have been many moments in our history where any sizable economic and societal and structural advancements of Black people have been destroyed by white people. And that is not even including the systemic and the institutional and the governmental things that have prevented Black people from building any type of wealth in this country. So
wealth was, a huge part of the Tulsa Massacre. This was known as, colloquially, as Black Wall Street. And there was a reason that this prosperous area of Black wealth was deliberately attacked.
Yes. And something to think about on this
powerful.
June 1st. Yes, yeah. Amazing. And also amazing when you contemplate, first off, we as a country are lucky to have someone who is 107 years old, who was there at that moment. I mean, I have a 8-year-old son, just turning 8, certainly is aware of the world around him at the time. But it is amazing that it has taken this long for the country to have any type of reckoning as to our past with these massacres. It is stunning. But thank goodness we had the opportunity to have her there. So, all right, quick break. When we come back, we will talk about what took place in Texas over the weekend, which, at the very least, harkens back to, that same era where there was attempts to disenfranchise, well, not attempts, successful attempts to disenfranchise black voters, people of color, frankly, low-income folks at that time. And what is old is sadly new again. We will take a quick break and be right back in a moment. Folks, today's show sponsored by the sponsor of my breakfast. Did you see me when I was drinking? I was literally tilting the box over my...
Luckily for you, I was focused on something else.
There you go. Folks, my breakfast consistently, I don't know how many days a week, is made up of Magic Spoon. In my case, almost exclusively cinnamon these days.
Yes.
Though peanut butter will make its way in there. Chocolate will make its way in there.
I've been on a real peanut butter kick myself.
And I'm not going to lie, I literally this morning, before I even realized that we had the ad, went in, bought myself a new order of cinnamon, and then I went all in with the new flavors they got. Magic Spoon has 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, only 4 net grams of carbs in each serving, only 140 calories a serving. It's keto friendly, it's gluten free, it's grain free, it's soy free, it's low carb, and it's GMO free. It's also your child complaints free. They love it. My kids do. With Build Your Own Box, you can have 4 of the available flavors to build your very own custom bundle. The choices are cocoa, fruity, frosted, peanut butter, blueberry, and cinnamon. You can even choose all of the same flavor if there's one you really love. I got a box of cinnamon. But they've got like 2 new ones out right now. I can't even remember what they were. It's like a donut flavor, and I just went for it.
Wasn't it birthday cake?
I think it's birthday cake, but I think they have a new one. I don't know what it was, but I went for both. I just said screw it. I'm doing it.
I mean, they really don't miss.
That's the thing. I'm a big cinnamon flavor guy. My kids, they fell in love with that with the last special. Can I just say it? I'm going to say it. Cookies and cream. They fell in love with that one. So now I try whatever they got the new flavors. I try that one. Roll that out for the kids. They like the cinnamon. They like the frosted and the fruity and the cocoa, the chocolate essentially. But I'm always trying to just mix it up for them. But they love it, and I feel good about giving you the food because there's no sugar, and it's got protein, a lot of protein, and it's low carb. It's GMO free. Go to magicspoon.com/majority report to grab a custom bundle of a cereal and try it today. Be sure to use our promo code majority report at checkout. You'll save $5 off your order. Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee. So if you don't like it for any reason, they refund your money, no questions asked. Remember, it's magicspoon.com/majority report. Use the code majority report, save $5. Also, I don't shave as much as, some folks would like me to.
You're not a Mad Men character.
I'm not a Mad Men character. However, I like to have a good shave. I like to have a clean shave. And I like to also not pay an arm and a leg for it, because that's as much a part of me as not shaving that much.
Yes.
With Harry's, you don't have to choose between a great shave and a fair price. And what is showing up? What's around the corner, Emma?
Summer.
Yeah.
And?
Jesus,
what?
Father's Day.
Oh, Father's Day.
Yeah. That would break my heart if I asked my daughter that and she didn't know.
Well, I'm not your daughter.
I understand, but I'm saying I'm speaking on behalf of your father.
Yes. Well, if he were to ask me, I would have known.
Yeah.
As a father, you're offended, Sam.
Slightly.
He's offended on behalf of fathers.
Right now, you can redeem a trial set for just $3 or get $5 off any shave set when you go to harrys.com/majority. Your dad will like this. Harry's gift sets make a great gift for any guy in your life year-round. And their new graphite Winston razor handle is even engravable, so you can personalize your gift.
That is a good Father's Day gift. Shows you thought about it in advance.
Exactly. That's all he cares about. Harry's delivers a close, comfortable shave at a fair price, still as low as $2 per refill. Harry's bought a factory in Germany. They've been making precision-engineered blades at that factory for over 100 years. Harry's design team combined a weighted ergonomic handle with their signature blade cartridge. It's a smart, simple razor designed for delivering a close shave along all the contours of your face, with blades designed to stay sharp. They stand behind the quality of their blades so much they have a 100% money-back guarantee on harrys.com. For me, I think longtime listeners of the show know, I like the trimmer blade head because it gets around the sort of idiosyncrasies of my nostril area, which I've now since found out that I have a deviated septum, so that's what that's about. But I also like the handle. I like the handle. It's like classic looking. It's weighted, and I like it. I mean, it just makes me, I don't know, makes me feel good. I don't know why I have to justify enjoying things that are well styled, but that's just the way I guess I grew up. But your dad will really appreciate an engraved one.
That's what I'm saying.
Emma.
Yeah. Okay. Got the message.
Harry's is giving their best offer to Majority Report listeners. New Harry's customers get a starter set for just $3. Plus, Harry's is doing a limited time offer for all customers starting now through Father's Day, which, incidentally, June 19th.
Yeah, it's June 20th, actually.
All right, whatever. June 20th, right around there. You should be. For me, I appreciate it when there's actually like a 2-day type of thing. Plus, Harry's is doing a limited time offer for all customers starting now through Father's Day, June 20th. You could take $5 off any shave set at harrys.com/majority. There's truly never been a better time to try Harry's. Go to harrys.com/majority. Start your own Harry's journey, or to save a few bucks on a special gift for a special dad in your life. Don't forget, your support makes this show possible. You can become a member by going to jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you not only support the show, but you also get the show free of commercials. All right. So let's get into what took place over the weekend in Texas. There has been a lot of talk. Well, you can go back since the Supreme Court rolled back the Voting Rights Act. They gutted the pre-clearance provision, under which about, I think it was 16 counties in about 14 states needed to go to the DOJ before they changed anything in their voting because of their history of racially targeted voter suppression.
And the Supreme Court essentially was like, racism's over, so we don't need this anymore.
We don't need this anymore. I mean, they almost literally said that.
Yeah, but that was the argument.
And they did say, however, that if Congress got back to the drawing board and created a new formula for what constitutes a need for preclearance, they'd be open to it. Now, this is incredibly egregious because they had rolled this back. I think it was 2013 or 2011. And within months, you had states, all of these states, imposing new voter restrictions. But it had all been reauthorized in 2007, almost unanimously. And I think it was Scalia said something to the effect of, well, they were just afraid in the Senate to vote against it.
Talk about judicial activism, deciding what the Senate thinks from your judge's chair. Doesn't seem to square with his position, huh?
To the extent that there's anything that exists that is called judicial activism, it has to do with, I mean, to the extent that it exists, it is specifically substituting your reasoning for the legislatures when they have been explicit in reauthorizing a bill.
Or even worse, presupposing what their like internal fears are as senators. That takes it to a whole nother level.
Then saying like, and then we're going to discount them.
Right.
So, but put that aside. I mean, that was, it was, I mean, no, don't put it aside. I mean, that's what the reality is. And we have seen just an onslaught of these type of voter suppression. We have seen the gerrymandering. We've seen the Supreme Court refuse to deal with the question of gerrymandering. They are on the brink of basically saying that you can't even have independent commissions to deal with gerrymandering. This is, and since Donald Trump's loss and the ginning up of election fraud, and understand, this has been a long-term Republican project. Make no mistake about this. This is not a Donald Trump innovation. You go back to 2005, 2004, Karl Rove is pushing U.S. attorneys. These are members of the Justice Department in each state. Bring me voter election fraud cases. And these U.S. attorneys couldn't find any. They could not find any. They could not bring any. And so what you had was the mass firing of a lot of these U.S. attorneys by the Bush administration, and it basically blew up into a big scandal.
No, this is just a Trump era problem.
And so the Republicans have been on and on with this.
Yes.
But Trump, you know, he is the culmination in many respects of all these Republican projects, and just was a little better at marketing it and triggered the sort of authoritarian impulses of a significant portion of our population. He comes out, says the election was stolen. It motivates an assault on the Capitol, 140 Capitol Police injured, 5 people die in the course of it, in one form or another. There's new release of information for prosecutors today that the Oath Keepers had positioned quick reaction forces around the city, some across the Potomac who had boats that were ready to come in with weaponry.
Yeah, it's part of their, Call of Duty cosplay situation.
It was, but it gets you into the mindset of what these people were thinking. And you start to realize, like, this was as real as anything could be.
That wasn't to belittle it. It was more just to kind of just take a peek into the mindset of it.
Yes, and they knew, or at least that they thought they knew what was going to go down. This was not a spontaneous thing.
Yeah.
And it also spurred Donald Trump's. It spurred this rash of basically laws to restrict people's voting. And the latest was in Texas. And it looked like this Texas thing was unstoppable. It would have banned after-hours voting. It would have prohibited ballot drop boxes in drive-through voting centers. It would mandate that all weekday early voting take place sometime between 6 a.m. and 9 p.m., though draft language would further limit Sunday voting, early voting to a maximum between the hours of 1 p.m. and 9 p.m. It would make it illegal for elections officials to send applications to vote by mail to people who did not request one. It would bar counties from helping facilitate the distribution of unsolicited ballot requests, require voters requesting absentee ballot to provide their driver's license number or social security number on both their request for a ballot and their return envelope containing their ballot. It would impose a $1,000 a day fine on local election officials who do not follow prescribed procedures to update their voter rolls, criminal penalties on election workers who obstruct poll watchers, et cetera, et cetera. Can't register to vote online in Texas. The whole idea is we're just going to put as many obstacles as possible, and the totality of these will capture people. Like, I mean, we can see this even in the context of the vaccination, right? Like, look at the difference, like the vaccination rates. Once you hit the people who really want the vaccination, this is something that is going to save people's lives. And still, any type of obstacle, people don't do it. And so the idea is we want to discourage voting, these Texas politicians. And so the Democrats had no way of stopping this, or at least they thought at first they had no way of stopping this. And here is Sarah Eckhart. She's in the 4th District of Texas, Travis County. She's going to explain why they wanted to block the Republican voting bill at the Texas legislature.
We were in a conversation across the aisle for 8 hours over Saturday night and into Sunday morning. We didn't leave the chamber until 6:30 a.m. after an 8-hour conversation with our Republican colleagues on the Senate floor. They remained unmoved. But the evidence is clear that this bill does not add integrity. It actually adds more than 10 criminal penalties and criminal enhancements. They are criminalizing people who are seeking to vote. They are doing this. It's no surprise that Republican leadership doesn't want Democrats winning, but Republican leadership also doesn't want to let in certain kinds of Republicans. The current Republican leadership only wants extreme culture war advocates who will take orders only from them. They do not want more people voting, Republican or Democrat. They only want their specific type of voter making it to the polls without intimidation.
Okay, so she outlines there that they were in conversation for 8 hours, and then she sort of implies what happens next, which is that Democrats in the Senate, the Texas Senate, realize, okay, if we're not here, there's not going to be essentially a quorum. And so we're going to go. We're going to
peace.
We're going to leave.
Yeah.
This is reminiscent of I think it was the Wisconsin 14, who attempted to stop the bill that was killing health insurance and the right to work in Wisconsin under Scott Walker. And they basically left the state. They had to be brought back by cops ultimately. But here is Texas House Democrat Joe Moody explaining why they basically left they walked off the House floor to deny the Republicans their quorum.
The idea that you can break quorum is something that's is always out there, and when you're pushed to extreme, you respond to that with extreme, and so we always had that tool at our disposal. And at a certain point, it became very evident that the only way to stop this legislation, at least in the short term, was to not be present.
Why was this worth it? What was it about this legislation that made you stage this walkout?
Look, the right to vote is something that we hold very dear and near to our hearts. And for the people that we represent, it means everything. The franchise is something that was never taken for granted in communities like mine, and we will never take it for granted. And so when people come to challenge that and people come to take that away, we're going to do whatever it takes to maintain the franchise.
Now, the reason why this tactic works, at least in the short term, is that the session was coming to an end. There was a limited amount of time for this bill to pass, and by walking out, it has to be reintroduced, and they have to go through the whole process again.
And what they also did was Texas Democrats, by basically forcing Republicans to adjourn and walking out, they also kind of torpedoed their own initiatives, which, like, police reform was on the table, I believe. Bail reform was on the table. But I think the Democrats in Texas accurately understood that, okay, well, this is the existential threat to voting in our state, and they chose to blow it all up, exercise the nuclear option, right? I mean, this is, as, the Washington Post article on this framed it, this is some kind of lesson for national Democrats. But leaving it to this, I mean, that was the right thing to do, because if this bill is implemented, then we're talking about Republican control in an undemocratic fashion in Texas, one of the largest states in the country, that is undoubtedly going to spread throughout.
And what's interesting about the efficacy of this type of thing is that Abbott was pissed. Greg Abbott, he was the governor. Mm-hmm. He said that he would, on today, veto the section of the state's budget that funds the legislature after they walked out. Apparently, state lawmakers are paid $600 a month.
Wow.
700. Well, I mean, it's not nothing, but they also get a per diem of 221 day that they're in session, including both regular and special sessions. Now, here's the interesting thing. Abbott promised to revisit this bill later in the year when they're back in session. He said he will have maybe a special session to redraw the districts, to do a little gerrymandering. There are some people that voting rights advocates in Texas say that the fact that he's not doing this right away suggests that the publicity around this has been has scared Abbott a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Well, because, I mean, it's not just, as Brendan pointed out to us, it's not just the state senators that would be screwed over. It's the staff that work there.
Oh, you mean in terms of the funding?
The funding.
The funding. But I'm talking about the scheduling of this again.
Okay.
And one of the dynamics that we've seen in the past is that when there are restrictions placed on voting, it ends up drawing a lot of cash into get out the vote measures, and it draws a lot of attention there. Now, and sometimes it renders that ineffective. We should say, though, however, it is redeploying resources from one column, that is maybe promoting people, getting people to vote for, and putting it in another, which is to get out the vote. Abbott could be afraid that this drew a lot of attention to the idea that they're preventing people from voting. This is a dynamic I was just actually explaining to my son last night, which is like when you tell somebody they can't do something, sometimes they get a little bit more adamant about doing it. And so we saw that dynamic in Georgia. We saw that dynamic in Georgia, and particularly this, the second round of voting. Certainly, with there to a certain extent. I mean, you can see what happens when. I mean, it draws out people to vote, but again, it's costing more money. You're redeploying funds. So I think Abbott was a little bit worried about this. That I think it was, it certainly drew attention. And then the other thing that these Texas lawmakers were saying is that the feds, the Democrats in Washington, need to fix this. They need to pass a bill, which coincidentally is known as S1 in the Senate.
It's available to them, already written. How convenient.
HR 1 in the House. These are major pieces of legislation that have been written to protect the vote. It is And then, of course, we're into the filibuster territory.
The steak is already marinated. They just have to put it in the oven.
Now, there are two, you put it into the oven as much, maybe you might want to put it on the grill. I'm not going to get caught up in that.
Yeah, okay, the chicken's marinated. Put it in the oven.
You might also put that on the grill. But the point being that...
You're a man.
The point is, look, the point is that I just never put my steak in the oven. I just don't do it that way.
You know.
The point is that there's opportunity. It may be the John Lewis bill. I mean, it really depends on what President Manchin says. But we are going to see Chuck Schumer, I think it was on Friday of last week or Thursday, basically outlined in a letter what was going to happen in June. And there was going to be a number of measures where everyone anticipates they're going to fail because they do not have the support of 10 Republicans, because nothing will get the support of 10 Republicans if it's part of the Democratic agenda. None of it.
Yeah.
And Joe Manchin learned this lesson the other day when you couldn't even get a genuinely bipartisan commission to examine what happened on January 6th. And look, I think that I don't know how to characterize it in the great scheme of things. Some people say it's overblown, the concerns. I really don't know. There are people out there who believe that we are, that this is how fascism spreads. But there cannot be any doubt, regardless of how seriously you take January 6th, that this should be thoroughly investigated. We should know, was there coordination by militias? And we have evidence that there was, for them to come and assault the Capitol. We should know, were there lawmakers who were participating in this?
There's a possibility that Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert were kind of in on it, at least tangentially.
Was the president aware that the Oath Keepers were setting up stations around the... I mean, these are legitimate questions to ask, particularly because this guy has plans to run again, particularly because in Texas this weekend, you had people calling for a coup. There are significant numbers of people in this country who believe that Donald Trump, and by significant, I mean the majority of the Republican Party, believe that Donald Trump was actually truly elected president of this country. The majority of Republicans still believe Donald Trump is the real president. This was a clip on Sunday at the Patriot Roundup Conference in that same state of Texas.
Mm-hmm.
This is the way they were spending Memorial Day weekend.
This is the revamped QAnon conference, by the way.
Yes. It's the Patriot Roundup now. It is like this Q thing but
they didn't invite the 8chan guys, the real originators of Q, very interestingly.
Taken on their own. A Marine gets up on stage with Michael Flynn, pardoned former national security advisor to the president of the United States. And
people believe he's, the most connected with Q, too. So it's like a big deal for him to be at this kind of conference for these folks.
And the Marines got a question for him. Why can't we do what we did in what was done in Myanmar? Speaking of a armed coup.
I'm a simple Marine. I want to know why what happened in Myanmar can't happen here.
No reason. I mean, it should happen here. No reason. That's right. One more.
Mini-Mar. That's, what you have in your hotel room.
That's right.
When you...
So he's encouraging. He didn't come up with the idea of the coup, apparently. He's just encouraging it. Now, do I think there's going to be a coup? No. Do I think there's going to be violence around this? Yeah. Yeah, I think there is. I think we're going to see increased violence.
Well, I mean, these are the same people. So that's why I keep emphasizing the Q stuff, right? It's the same energy that's being brought here, where now it's not just let's storm the Capitol and, hang Mike Pence, and I guess there's still people belittling that. Now it's let's have a pre-orchestrated coup that copies a legitimate coup in another country that's happening right now, like an actual one where there's organization and the kidnapping of a political leader.
Right, and you're not saying the coup is legitimate, you're saying it's an actual coup. A legit coup,
yes,
right?
Of course, yes.
I just want to clarify.
Yeah,
there.
I'm not legitimizing the coup attempt as something that's.
You're not encouraging coups around the world.
Yeah, no, that's. Thanks for specifying.
Just wanted.
That. Thanks.
You were using legitimate like the kids, like legit.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, well, I'm a young person. Right?
Yeah, I know.
Rock on, man.
I know. Speaking of other coup legitimizers, Sidney Powell. And now look, and I want to make something clear. This is obviously, for all these people involved who are sitting on the stage, a mechanism in which to generate money. And it very well may be their 90% of why they are there is to generate money. Maybe they don't believe any of this. Maybe they believe some of it. Maybe they sort of believe it. But the point is that the people in the audience, they're spending money to go and believe that. They're not making the money. Here is Sidney Powell.
Rebranded Sidney Powell. Biker chick Sidney Powell, right? She's in a new phase of her life.
She needs it's freedom. Sidney Powell at that same Patriot Roundup conference.
That he can simply be reinstated, that a new inauguration date is set. And Biden is told to move out of the White House, and and President Trump should be moved back in. I'm sure there's not going to be credit for time lost, unfortunately, because the Constitution itself sets the date for inauguration. But he should definitely get the remainder of his term and make the best of it. That's for sure.
So she's basically saying there that in a matter of time, Trump will be reinstalled as the true president of the United States. And there are cheers of people who traveled and spent money, as you say, to go to that conference and hear that. Like that is a thought process out there. And so then at the same conference when they're talking about let's copy what happened in Myanmar or mini-bar, right? Then like, okay, we have to kind of treat this with some semblance of, let's take this seriously. This could happen another time. And as you mentioned, the seeds of stop the steal, the seeds of these votes are illegitimate, the seeds of it's illegal immigrants who are voting and the Republican Party is being screwed over by illegality in the voting systems. This has been a long con, and they've laid the groundwork in that work, and they're going to continue to try to go back to that well, and it might get increasingly more violent, which is the January 6th Commission. It may bore people. It kind of bores me a little bit, but it's important because, one, it's a wedge issue for the Democratic Party, and two, because of everything I just said.
Right. And let's also be clear here. This is going to be a problem for years.
Yeah.
This is not something that just goes away. This doesn't just go away. And
the same people who are saying that this commission is a waste of time on the left, I guess, in 3 years when they're making the same arguments, they'll be talking about how crazy the right wing is when it comes to this. But that was part of why we needed a reckoning in this moment.
Yes. I mean, it is really, to a certain extent, it's just like bailing water. I mean, this is not going away, folks, and it's going to grow. I mean, here is CNN interviewing some of the Patriot Roundup attendees. And you can go back and look at like the Glenn Beck 9/12 rallies. I mean, I guess these people are always there, but they are getting more and more conspiratorial. At those 9/12 rallies that Glenn Beck had, they were, it was just you can't pass a bill that has more than 100 pages because the people didn't even read the bill, and Barack Obama may not be, actually an American.
It's elitist to have long bills.
And now we're just going in there and normalizing coups. Here is CNN interviewing just to get a sense of like I say, doesn't matter why Sidney Powell's doing it. Doesn't matter why Michael Flynn's doing it. These people have seen Sidney Powell and Michael Flynn. Michael Flynn gets a pardon from the president. They see them on TV. There are now, not literally hundreds, but there may be tens of these cable TV outlets, that are perceived as cable TV outlets. I saw her on television. This is real, what she's talking about. This is the way that folks, perceive reality. I mean, we all do it on some level where, we see it on TV. It's got to be real. I saw an expert on TV. And these experts are just basically calling for I don't know if it was a bloodless coup or a military, but, some type of military coup. Mm-hmm. I'm sure they all have their different ideas of it. Here is Donnie O'Sullivan interviewing some of these people, and talking to Anderson Cooper about it.
Biden is he's like a puppet president. The military is in charge. It's going to be like Myanmar. What's happening in Myanmar? The military is doing their own investigation, and at the right time, they're going to be restoring the republic with Trump as president.
What's going on in Myanmar right now? The government took over, and they're redoing the election, correct? That could possibly happen here, possibly.
Would you like to see it happen?
Absolutely.
I would like to see it happen. Really? Yes.
You know why? Because the election was stolen from us.
Donnie joins us now. So I understand Michael Flynn appears to have made additional comments about this controversy. What's he now saying?
That's right, Anderson. He is today saying that his words have been twisted somehow, that he is not actually calling for a coup. But look, I mean, you heard the comments there in that piece, and essentially this QAnon conference was devoted to overturning the results of the election. You heard Sidney Powell there talking about a potentially new inauguration day. And, this talk of a coup is something that has been circulating for months now in the QAnon conspiracy theory world that both Powell and Flynn live in. And, I spend a lot of time reading a lot of these pro-Trump forums, these QAnon forums online, and speaking to Trump supporters. And I will say of all the conspiracy theories we hear and all the different ideas, this talk from Americans about a coup, cheering on a coup and hoping for a coup in the United States is one of the most chilling things that I hear on the road.
Yeah.
Anderson?
Donnie O'Sullivan.
So, I mean, what... This is so you heard the woman repeat the Myanmar coup talking point to the CNN reporter there. This was legitimized by Michael Flynn on stage by essentially encouraging it after the question from that Marine. That's going to go back into these shady online Q forums, and it's going to be kept being recirculated and mixed messages and secret meetings and all of this stuff, the way that they've been behaving leading up to the January 6th insurrection. And then out of nowhere, there will be some sort of violent outburst and people will go, well, where did this come from? And it's because they see guys like Michael Flynn, Sidney Powell too, as connected to Trump and thus having legitimacy. And so they're sending them signals. And even people who aren't diehard Q people, but who are in this MAGA world, they'll get fed that kind of digested conspiracy talk through Facebook, through whatever, and they'll start getting on board too. And that's how these things start. And I mean, this is what, 4.0, version 4.0 of this kind of thing?
And this is why, I mean, look, the thing that we saw in Texas was that they figured out a way, at the very least, to flex their power when Democrats ostensibly have no power in the Texas state legislature. They had one leverage point, that was their ability to deny quorum. The Democrats are in a situation now where they are looking to Joe Manchin, maybe Kristen Sinema. I don't know if she operates independently from Joe Manchin. I don't know if she can make, I don't know that, Joe Manchin might be the person who could deny them, Phil. I don't know if Kristen Sinema can do that just by the nature of her state that she's in. She doesn't have someone to her right. It may be a problem in a state that is turning blue, or at least more so than West Virginia. But Joe Biden needs to figure out how he can marshal the resources of the presidency of the United States to get Joe Manchin on board with reforming the filibuster in some manner that allows for things like S1 to be brought up, the For the People Act,
the PRO Act,
or the PRO Act. Bills that will not only be important for people in this country, but also important to enhance democratic power, small d and large d.
Yeah, and this is when I get legitimately pissed, because the Biden administration says they care after every mass shooting about getting gun control passed, right? Not even that Manchin would pass anything substantively, but there's zero shot with the filibuster in place. They say they care about ending police massacre of black people, of civilians in this country, but they don't take the necessary steps to do it, yet they're still fundraising off of it. And that's what makes me so annoyed about the Democratic Party's posture on this. For many reasons, yes, but it really is quite cynical, because there's email blasts every time there's a mass shooting. Gun control, Sandy Hook, what happened at Marjorie Stone High School down in Florida, right? There's all of this talk, but all of that is to morally posture so they can fundraise from suburban upper middle class types. And then they don't take the necessary steps to do it. So if these are like the easiest issues for the Democratic Party, Biden should be flexing, as you say, every ounce of his muscle to get the filibuster reform to happen, so that they can not just be all talk and all let's milk the Democratic base for money on this. Because I really do believe that's a much of the driving the conversation behind those two topics in the lawmaker circles.
There is a op-ed in the LA Times today by Erwin Chemerinsky and Bert Newborn. Bert Newborn is a professor of civil liberties at New York University School of Law. Chemerinsky is the dean of the UC Berkeley School of Law. And they write there is a clear next step in changing the Senate filibuster. Vice President Kamala Harris, as presiding officer of the Senate, can and should declare the current Senate filibuster rule unconstitutional. Nixon did it in 1957. It was reaffirmed by Hubert Humphrey and Nelson Rockefeller subsequent to that. It was that ruling which was the basis of the Democratic-controlled Senate in 2013 and the Republican-controlled Senate in 2017 for changing the filibuster requirements for executive and judicial nominees. And ultimately, what it comes down to is equal suffrage in the Senate. Article 5 of the Constitution and the 17th Amendment, which changed the way that the Senate was elected. The 17th Amendment preserved the founders' decision to give each state 2 senators with equal voting rights. Now, we all know that that is still it is undemocratic. You have a state like Wyoming that has 65 times more voting power than California, right?
Yes,
California has 40 million residents. Yeah. Wyoming has something like 600,000. And however, that's the way it was set up, and it was reaffirmed in the 17th Amendment. What was not reaffirmed in the 17th Amendment and has never been affirmed is the filibuster, which makes it even more unconstitutional. The Senate has the authority to create, or does not have the authority by use of the filibuster to create even more unfairness than already exists. So there is easy legal precedent for this filibuster reform. We got to take a quick break. We come back. I just want to finish up with a leaked memo that could be good news. I don't want to get too excited about a memo, but good news in terms of immigration, at least in terms of what Joe Biden can do unilaterally. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back after this. So briefly, New York Times reports on a memo that has been obtained by the New York Times. I imagine it was leaked. 46-page draft. It's a draft that maps out the Biden administration's plan to significantly expand the legal immigration system, including methodically reversing Donald Trump's reforms or attempts to dismantle it. And we should say, caveat, it's a draft, it's a blueprint. This is only...
Draft, memo, both caveats.
Exactly. It's from May 3rd, DHS plan. A lot of it seems to be increasing numbers, but... our friend, frequent IMer of the show, Ronald Reagan, who has a podcast called Redirect, is an immigration lawyer. And so much of what has happened is there have been administrative obstacles that have been placed that make it much, much harder for people to gain immigration status. It seems like the plan is to streamline a lot of these procedures, which is going to make it a lot easier. The proof will be in the pudding. We will talk more about this as the days go on and the pudding begins to become more gelatinous.
Moldy?
No. Like form.
Oh, that's... Don't really know how pudding works because I don't know if you realize this. I'm not 70 years old.
Yeah. Well, for us old folks, still enjoy a good pudding. Until tomorrow, we will see you again if you're leaving us, if you're watching us on Peacock.
Good way to end. Yep.
Yeah. For those of you sticking around, more pudding talk.
I thought you were going to break out Jell-O. Isn't it amazing that in, the 70s and 80s, they had entire Jell-O cookbooks and recipes?
I believe it. I like
did
Jell-O.
enjoy a good Jell-O pack as a kid.
Yeah, of course. I've gotten back into pudding recently. I'm not kidding.
I mean, you brought it up out of nowhere.
Well, I said proof is in the pudding.
Oh, okay.
But
I haven't had enough of this coffee.
Oh, it's Tuesday. I forgot it was Tuesday too. So feeling like a Monday. Folks, just remember, it is your support that makes this show possible. When you join the Majority Report, you not only get the free show, free of commercials, you also, maybe in the future, will get pudding recipes. So become a member today. Join the MajorityReport.com. And also, don't forget AM Quickie. Great way to stay in touch with the news every morning, 6-7 minutes. We just give you the quick straight read. And also, don't forget, join our Discord, majoritydiscord.com. A lot of great stuff going on in the Discord. And justcoffee.coop. Fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code MAJORITY. Get 10% off. Look who's here.
Nomi. Hi.
Hello.
Oh, my gosh. It turns out the proof is in the pudding, not the pudding.
No, it's pudding. You were right.
Someone's saying the pudding.
The
P-U-T-T.
putting. Like they're talking about, I'm on the IM too. They're talking about like golf.
I thought the proof was in the pudding.
Yeah, it's like you taste the pudding to see if you made the pudding correctly.
Yeah.
Also,
Right.
banana pudding is delicious. Banana cream pudding is amazing. I'm gonna go get one after the show.
Gross. You people are so gross. Pudding is the most disgusting thing.
Banana
Banana
pudding
is the worst
like
word.
Yeah, I'm pretty anti. I'm not anti-pudding, but Sam's been saying that he's been having a lot of it lately, which, you know.
So it used to be, the original version was the proof. The original version is the proof of the pudding is in the eating, but people couldn't be bothered to be so, that was too laborious. So they just cut it down to like, the proof is in the pudding. In other words, the quality of the pudding.
Right. Right.
I'm just very confused about this. How did this line catch on? Did that many people care about pudding? Did they not have other, chocolate mousse, chocolate cake? There's so many better desserts. What is it about this that caught on?
Pudding's good.
Ugh.
All right. What do you got on your show?
Hospital food.
What do you got on your show today? Are you doing your show from some type of like
Are you in a subway?
like a boiler room? It sounds like.
Wait, is there a sound issue?
Yeah, it's you.
Hell, I've been sitting here the whole time. I think it's because I moved my microphone down just like a half an inch. Is this
Yeah,
better?
it's the room noise thing.
Yeah.
The air conditioning. Damn it.
Okay.
I don't understand. I've been taping from here. No one ever said this. It takes Sam to tell me. All right, I'll turn off the air conditioning in a second. I'm just going to die because it's 125 degrees. Thanks. Jonathan Rapping is on. He's going to be talking about his new book, Gideon's Promise, a public defender's movement to transform criminal justice, from Beacon Press. And then we have Napoleon the Legend and Joshua Kahn Russell on to talk later about all the news of the day. But I'm going to go turn off the air conditioning. Thank God it's a ponytail day because it's hot.
It's definitely.
Just make sure your Zoom settings are right before you burn yourself alive.
Yeah, I think there's something. Maybe that's it.
Definitely coming in on your microphone though, right? It's not coming from your computer sound?
No, it's coming from my microphone. It's just so weird. I haven't moved my setup here in like a week. So, all right, we'll figure it out.
All right. Matt, what's happening in the Matt Leckian world of universe of media?
Yeah, well, yesterday on the Literary Hangover Twitch feed, I played a little bit Ultimate General Civil War. I played the Battle of Fredericksburg, and we actually did much better than the Union Army did typically, or historically. And so check that out. We also watched a little documentary. What's that?
Sounds awesome.
It was great. It's super fun. That is a very fun game. You get sucked into a nice long battle. That has all of them, has all the Bull Runs, Gettysburg, all that stuff. So you can check that out. And then got Kurt Hackbarth talking about Mexico on Left Reckoning on Tuesday night. So look forward to that.
I'm just trying to figure out, like, all I'm doing is like just trying to figure out, like, how can I squeeze that into my life?
What?
That kind of gameplay.
Oh, I know, but I don't know if I see that in your future.
It's not like I'm doing anything else that
You're working all the time.
I know it.
And
I know.
you
That's
got,
what I'm saying.
Like, 2 baseball obligations.
I know. I got baseball season to end. All right, folks. Quick break. Head into the fun half. Left is best. Jamie and I may have a disagreement.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want about people just because you're rich.
I have an absolute right to mock them on YouTube.
He's up there buggy whipping like he's the boss.
I am not your employer.
You know, I'm tired of the negativity.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. Are you nervous? You're a little bit upset. You're riled up.
Yeah, maybe you should rethink your defense of that, you fucking idiots.
We're just going to get rid of you.
All right.
But dude. You want to smoke this joint?
Yes.
Do you feel like you are a dinosaur?
Some good shit.
Exactly. I'm happy now.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now listen to me. 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 847-906-501-457. 2, 38, 56, 27. 1/2. 5 8s. 3.9 billion.
Wow.
He's the ultimate math nerd.
Don't you see?
Why don't you get a real job instead of spewing vitriol and hatred, you left-wing Limbaugh?
Everybody's taking their dumb juice today.
Come on, Sammy.
Dance, dance, dance.
Rand Paul.
I had my first post-coital scene with a woman. I'm hoping to add more moves to my repertoire. All I have is the dip and the swirl.
Fine, we can double dip.
Yes, this is a perfect moment.
No.
Wait, what?
You make under $1 million a year. You're scum. You're nothing.
Excuse me? Fuck you, you fucking liberal elite. I think you belong in jail.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person.
All right, gonna take a quick break. I want to take a moment to talk to some of the libertarians out there. Take whatever vehicle you want to drive to the library. What you're talking about is jibber jabber.
Classic. I'm feeling more chill already.
Good. Donald Trump can kiss all of our asses.
Hey, Sam. Hey, Andy. You guys ready to do some evil?
Hitler was such an idiot.
I think I might be a Nazi.
Agree.
No.
Death to America.
Do.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's weird. No way! Unbelievable. This guy's got a really good hook.
Throw our hands up.
Ooh. Wow.
But Sam, I gotta get off.
No worries. Let's. I want to just flesh this out a little bit. I mean, look, it's a free speech issue. If you don't like me,
Hey, shut up.
Thank you for calling into the Majority Report. Sam will be with you shortly.
Back.
folks, welcome to the world famous Majority Report Fun Half, and we're starting off the show today with a major announcement. Here it is. I feel like we've been talking about this for a long time, and there have been some false starts, I think, around. But I was just informed of drivers.coop. It is a driver-owned rideshare in New York City. It's an app. Go to drivers.coop, C-O-O-P, drivers.coop, I guess you could say. For a long time, there was a co-op in Cambridge. I thought it was the Coop.
Coop.
But
I'm
there
going
it
to
is.
download it right now.
This is so awesome. I'm so excited about this. I'm wondering about this for years. I've been hearing about it, and this couldn't be better. There's no reason why this shouldn't happen, and this is great. This is really great.
Drivers. So I just put up in co-op ride. It comes right up. 5 stars. Downloading it right now.
And I just want to make it clear. I don't know anything about this service other than it is a driver's cooperative. And so I'm going to try it, and that's it. So forget it.
Wait, let's be clear, because there's a couple that pop up. Is it co-op ride with the green graphic, or is it Lyft co-op driver app?
This green graphic.
But you can go online to drivers.coop, and it will take you to the page. Get the app. That's the best way to do it.
Got it.
You
Installed, just like that.
Yeah, it is the green one though. So.
I wouldn't be surprised if like Uber was out there like, we're gonna flood the app market search function with this, with
it redirects us.
Yeah, that type of thing.
There There's also, for New Yorkers, I don't know if they do this in other cities, but we did this during our campaign. We were vehement against using rideshare apps, and we all use the New York City taxi app. So you can, it functions the same way.
I think it's called Curb.
It is called Curb.
Yes. No, I've been on that for a long time. In fact, Arrow, I used to have multiple ones that would feed into it, but I've used Curb. You can use, I've used Curb in Philadelphia. I used that in Vegas. Maybe it was Arrow at the time. But you can use that quite a bit of places around the country.
That's helpful.
And I still support them because, don't forget that these taxi drivers spent so much of their money and took on so much debt for the medallions that were just devalued like overnight. So if you can support your taxi drivers.
Without a doubt.
There was a man who, I'm like, sorry to be Debbie Downer here, but just to emphasize the plight of taxi drivers in this country, there were multiple suicides, including a man in front of City Hall who had a sign taped to him, was essentially, he shot himself, and he said this was because of the medallion, the what happened to me, and and lost all of his money, and so this is a good way to kind of repent in some ways.
And unions should, that's kind of the reason why you join a union is to protect your interests, right? And the union was unable to fight back. And they didn't invest in the housing market or the stock market. They invested in their businesses that many of them had for decades, and their working class houses in Queens. It's just, many of them are based in Queens because of the taxi headquarters are in Queens. It's just, I don't know. I think the fact that epidemic has been going on and so little has been done to fight it off, and that hasn't been the central piece of it, not that that we have overcrowded streets, but that there have been countless suicides across the country as a result. Failure of leadership. And that's why we have a mayoral election, which none of them are going to do anything about it.
That election is turning out to be one of the most depressing things that one can imagine.
Oh yeah, point. Wow. No, at least we'll have more TikTok houses though. Just kidding.
All right.
We'll just give the police more money.
Let's turn to something that's a little bit light and a little bit meta. This is Father's Day is coming up, so I thought this would be a good time to bring this up. There's two stories about Father's Day actually associated with this. I don't know if you watched that podcast H3. It's a massive show. It's not really a podcast. It's a YouTube show. And massive. And this guy hosted, it's a name, Ethan Klein, is that it? And I think, is that his wife too? They do a 3-hour show. I don't know if it's every day. But it was very sweet. At the end of the show, they found out that they were pregnant with their second child.
Very sweet.
It was very sweet. And then it was very sweet to watch it. And so that reminded me of Father's Day. And then the other part that reminded me about Father's Day was that it's Hila, I think her name is. She actually texted her doctor while they were on air and found out that they were pregnant with the second child. And I think they may have had some, it was difficult to do. So that was sweet. That was very reminiscent of Father's Day. And then the other thing, they had just finished a segment about Steven Crowder, and every day is sort of Father's Day for him.
Yeah, it's he's always trying to give his father a gift, but his father always says this isn't good enough.
That's right.
Yeah, so it's
there's a real great Santini quality of this, but it's almost like that.
It's like Groundhog Day for your disappointment.
Yes. I think because Crowder has this thing, there's something inside of him that makes him feel like his wrestling coach of a dad, who's now his manager, isn't going to accept him as he is in some weird way. And I don't know. Maybe that's why he has to weight lift so much. I'm not sure. I'm not a psychiatrist.
Weight lift while, wearing makeup and a woman's wig.
He does that because that's his reporting. And so they did a long segment on Crowder. Not hard to do because, of course, this guy's a joke and he needs to make himself feel manly. He's got all these sort of these things to sort of make him feel like he's more manly. Like he puts his bottle of whiskey on his desk and he has a holster. He carries around his, his penis substitute in his holster.
Those are always.
Oh no, gun. Is that what it's called? A gun. Okay, I'm sorry.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And he wears it around because it makes him feel like he's like macho guy. He's a macho guy. And but here is the best part from my perspective, which I thought was pretty fun. Apparently, his producer Dan has seen a couple of the videos, and producer Dan was aware of the fact that we had played at one point a phone call that I had accidentally had recorded, and I did distort the voice. So, but I do know her. It turns out we have a mutual friend, and I don't think she was bummed about it at all, actually.
Okay.
Crowder was supposed to, and I were supposed to have a debate at Politicon like 3 years ago. And it was all set to go. I was psyched. I'm not a big fan of those type of things, the Politicon or whatever it is, but I was going to, and he dropped out.
To argue, yeah.
He dropped out. And I said, what happened? And she said, well, he got cold feet.
Hashtag cold feet Crowder.
That's where the hashtag cold feet Crowder came from. And it was because
she said it. She actually said he got cold feet.
Yes. She said he got cold feet. And she said, yeah, his people called me. And I said, wait, he's got people? What does that mean? He's got people. And she said, well, his dad. His dad is his manager. and then I don't know if even producer Dan was aware that I was going to, when Gavin McInnes had his show, was going to give me $5,000. And I said, I'm not coming on your show for $5,000. I'm just not interested. Even though I had to take just a card to cross the bridge to go there. But I was supposed to have a debate with Crowder. And then Crowder told McInnes, I won't show up if Sam's on the show. Supposedly because he had 2 million viewers on YouTube, and at the time I had 700,000 or whatever it was, or 500,000.
Oh, he wouldn't want to debase himself.
He wouldn't want to debase himself, yet he'll debate any college student with probably no followers on YouTube.
And they don't even have their emotional support little...
They're holsters, yeah.
Holsters, right, or they're, right.
So here is producer Dan just taking advantage of the fact that they have a massive viewership, and he knows that Crowder will see this.
We've been talking about Crowder for long enough. In my opinion.
Okay, we'll do a Crowder content card. That'd be fun.
This is not going to make sense to a lot of people, but just because I feel like there's a decent chance Steven Crowder will see this, and this will be the only time that I get to say this. Debate Sam Seder, dude. Stop being such a pussy. I know that your dad doesn't want you to, and but that was a long time ago. That was you're 3 years older now. It's time. It's time to debate Sam. So,
do you want to give some context to that, Dan?
There's a political YouTube channel called The Majority Report, and the host Sam Seder is one of those. Like Steven Crowder, he's a guy who likes to debate, and they had scheduled a debate at a big political convention called Politicon. That they, it was all like arranged and it was settled and everything. And Sam got a call, which he recorded and played on his show, which is what makes it so good. So we can validate this story, where they explained that Steven had backed out and had gotten cold feet, which earned him a nickname, Cold Feet Crowder, which go to any of his tweets on Twitter is just, to this day, it's full of that. And then they revealed that his handler, his agent, is basically his dad, and his dad called them and was like, he can't do it.
So why? Probably because he knew he was going to.
Because Sam Seder isn't. Yeah, he's not a fucking 19-year-old college student. He actually knows what he's talking about. Yeah, he was going to get embarrassed, and
his daddy said no.
Yeah, his daddy
said no.
His daddy's looking out for him. So,
Daddy, do you like my holster? Does it make me look big and tough?
So I don't know. I never thought I would get the opportunity to send a message directly to Crowder, and so I'm using this opportunity to say,
Daddy.
Debate Sam Cedar, please.
Fucking owned. Good shit, Dan. He's gonna get 2 more holsters on his legs now.
Daddy, Daddy, do you like my holsters? I'm gonna get a new holster that you like, so I can look masculine, and you'll be proud of me.
There you go.
Well done, producer Dan.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes, I enjoyed that. I actually ended up watching a bunch of that show. They have that. Do you see that TV thing they had in the background?
Yeah, amazing.
That's a robot.
Oh,
That's
no way.
I mean, it's on a stick and wheels, and it was going around the office when when Ethan wasn't there one day. They got a big complex. I don't know where they do this. Maybe in LA.
That's pretty cool. Why don't we have one of those here?
I mean, it looked a little pricey. To be honest with you, but it looked cool. It looked super cool.
I'm all for them kind of just ginning up some excitement around this.
Yeah. Yep.
Wait, what is the show? I'm clueless.
H3. I think Ethan. I feel like I know that guy from somewhere. I'm not sure, but I think he's friends with with people I'm friends with in that comedy world a little bit.
It's a comedy show. What's the premise of the show? I only watch political shows. I have no idea what else is on the internet.
Yeah, I had no idea too.
You're asking the right guy.
Other shows apparently that are not political in nature. I had no idea. The robot is for their employee who works in Sweden. Apparently it cost $4,000. So
I'm writing a check.
There you go, right there. Well, good for those guys. H3.
Sam, you can build a robot. You built everything on your set. It's just there's gonna be a lot of wires showing.
There'll be a lot of wires showing.
The over under on F words uttered as you built that robot.
Pretty high. But that's the way I get things done. Let's go to the IMs. You know what? You know what I want to talk to you about, Nomi, was this, and folks can participate in pushing this. Where is this?
The way that you started that is almost like I have to have a talk with you, Nomi.
Listen, Nomi, everything that's going on with your air conditioner, we're a little bit concerned. There is a bill, as you know, the New York Health Act, that would create a single-payer system in this state. It was introduced in 1992 by Richard Gottfried. He is now sitting on the head of a committee that this bill seems like it has an actual chance of going somewhere in New York State. And we have a weakened governor who is sort of under siege a little bit still. And I don't know, if I was Andrew Cuomo and I wanted to try and run for governor again, or in some way rehabilitate myself, this might be something that I would sign if it gets there. I don't know, maybe. You can go and help this by going to New York H, that's NYH, as in New York Healthcare, NYHcampaign.org. And it gives you all sorts of information to support it. But what do you know about this, Nomi?
Basically what you said. The reason why this is even on the table now, even though it's been on the table since the 90s, by Gottfried, who has been championing this since then, and others like Gustavo Rivera, who's also a senator from New York. This happened because the IDC the Independent Democratic Conference was defeated. What happened, was Andrew Cuomo was able to pretend to be progressive and not have to veto legislation because he had these 8 Democrats who were in the Senate that were conferencing with Republicans and getting perks and bigger offices and not working with their fellow Democrats, even though they mostly came from Democratic districts. And that's why the IDC, but people didn't know because, pre-Trump, people didn't pay attention to local politics, I guess, or the majority, I should say. So, I think the question is whether or not another bill could potentially be presented in the future, not this session, obviously, as it's almost over. And if folks can really, I think the Senate is much stronger than the assembly in terms of progressive politicians or leadership, I should say. That's actually a better way of saying it, is the leadership, I think, has more of a motivation to, even though it's a smaller, group, they have more of a motivation to stay bold. And I mean, but there's so many more Democrats in the assembly that I think it'll pass no matter what. We'll see. I mean, I think people Cuomo is stronger polls wise still to this day, stronger than he may appear to like progressives who've just been reading all the stories, or anybody who's been reading the stories. And simultaneously, there's like backroom political stuff happening with the assembly, which is leading the investigation right now of him, because he still is under investigation both by Attorney General Tish James and the assembly right now. So, there's like rumblings of him cutting a deal with the speaker, the leader of the assembly, Carl Hastie. And of course, Tish James, who's in an extraordinarily strong position to potentially run against Cuomo, or if he, look at it this way in terms of politics. If she's leading an investigation, she's Attorney General, she's most likely next, and he gets, she investigates and finds that he was wrong across the board, and he has to step down. She's the next in line to be unified around. So she actually has like a little bit of it's not a direct conflict of interest, because you can't, nobody can perceive her motivations, because the law is the law is the law, and she's going to have to follow the law. But she's most likely the best candidate to replace him on the Democratic side. Also, potentially challenge him if she has the courage, or at least explore the idea of challenging him. And if she was exploring the idea seriously of challenging him, he may not run again. So if all of the energy is being put in the assembly, it's more likely that Andrew Cuomo cuts a deal. I mean, both of the investigations are happening at the same time. So I'm not going to didn't say that one's going to go away for the other. But, these are like the multi-dimensional dynamics and politics of New York State, which is real fun everywhere, actually. But we have to start thinking this way, because it's not like, oh, we got him with the story. No. Andrew Cuomo is a political machine. He'll find his way.
Of course. The point is, though, this is a very big opportunity. And if this can happen in New York State, look, New York State and California State, New York State, California, they need to be, we need these states to be leaders in this type of progressive legislation, because of their size. It's just going to create a compulsion. It's going to compel other states to do this.
Well, California had it done until it was kind of in the 11th hour done away with, essentially backroom machinations.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's what I fear is going to happen in New York. A similar type of governor. I'm not saying Newsom is as bad as Cuomo, because it's hard to be a Democratic governor as bad as Cuomo, but I think there's going to be, as Nomi said, a lot of political considerations if this does get passed, if it gets implemented, due to, of course, all of the circumstances surrounding Andrew Cuomo. I saw this pointed out on Twitter, though, and why I'm happy you're bringing it up and asking Nomi about this is because I feel like there hasn't been a lot of energy directed towards this by, progressives who were, ostensibly quite interested in forcing a vote on Medicare for all. I'm not trying to bring that up, but or relitigate that. But I do think it's key that Sam makes the correct point that if this happens in a state like New York, if it eventually happens again in a state like California, then these are the building blocks that set up a situation where progressives could make a power play for Medicare for all.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a really important point. The organizing, I'm not saying that there hasn't been organizing. There's definitely been organizing around passing this, but there's a lot of energy going in a lot of different directions right now. If this were to happen next year again, which, given that it's been on the table since '92, it could very likely happen that way when it's not a mayoral year, when the oxygen isn't being sucked out of the room, when there aren't so many there's every city council election is taking place right now. A lot of this energy is coming from New York City, but targeting that New York City energy towards the senators who are, Long Island, upstate, on the fence, the new version of the IDC, there's only a couple of them, but they're doing all they can to protect King Cuomo. you've got to like keep the pressure going on them. And those are the ones that feel, the local lawmakers feel the pressure in a way that Cuomo can just kind of like move through it.
Yep. You get dollar for dollar and literally dollar for dollar, but also, call for call. When you call a state assemblyman or assembly person or a state senator versus like your congressperson, your call, there's an algorithm, and your call is literally worth more than it would be any other politician that you call, because most people don't even know who their state senator is. And the idea that you would pick up the phone on a certain bill is going to weigh heavily on them. There's a presumption. I mean,
and it's just such a shame that this, as we've talked about, this mayoral race is such a cluster F, because like when Cynthia Nixon ran, that was a really important moment to galvanize a lot of progressive energy after Ocasio-Cortez was successful. And that was instrumental in kind of taking the next step to get rid of the IDC. And I don't feel the same energy in New York right now when we're talking about, say, progressive issues like single payer. So, there's just like the lack of cohesiveness when it comes to energy in this election year, at least in New York City, is frustrating.
Well, and some of that is because the organizations that coalesced around the Senate and in defeating the IDC and the senators who were leading this too, but behind the scenes very quietly, and now it's been reported on, but people didn't really like publicly know it at the time. That's not happening. Not only is the leadership not bringing all these organizations together to really go bold, the organization's resources are specifically going into winning elections, winning these city council races and the mayoral races. I mean, it's so much of the energy that is being consumed. And I think we think that it happens in this organic way, and in some ways it is, but it's often around these like coalition groups, at least for it to get beyond like, a few protests here and there, and really pulling together the energy, the press, the momentum, so that something's defeated. I think if this is, the moment, who knows what the moment's going to look like next year? Who knows where Cuomo is going to be next year? But, I think there could be a lot of energy in organizing from now until then. And you guys should have Gustavo Rivera on. He's really good. If you haven't before, Senator Rivera from New York, great at talking about this. We've interviewed, and Godfrey too, of course.
Yeah, we should do that. Prairie Fire. Hey, MR crew, Emma, Nomiki, and the real farmer, Sam. Thank you for the acknowledgement. In the world of agriculture news, the big story is the hacking of JBS. This is a major meatpacking plant. About 1/4 of the North American meatpacking plants have been impacted. Corn prices are on the rise again. A late freeze caused a sizable amount of replant. Thanks to the agricultural subsidies, or replant wouldn't be worth it, and the problem for production would be worse. Left is busing. Pretty good lefty. Sam, you said you would go on the Vanguard a couple of weeks ago. Last night, they said they won't go easy on you when you show up. Are you nervous?
Why would you go on that show?
Wait, what show is that again?
Those are the two guys that were on with Chomsky.
Oh, sure. On with them. Okay. Yeah. But when have they invited me?
They haven't emailed me, or I haven't checked the main feed.
That's like the Twitter gossip account, right?
I'll go on any show. I don't know if I want to say that way, but I'm happy to go on any shows.
I'm like too lazy to do that.
I a lot of times it falls through the cracks, but they're like, I go, like last week I did I did 2 shows last week. I was like a student show, somebody's student show. And I did, the White Can and the Champagne Sharks. And that was
good for you. I
only do it when I'm not with my kids.
I know, but yeah, I was just like, I admire. It's just, you really are a machine. It's unreal.
I know. I'm gonna break down. This
is Sam's life force. I'm telling you, he's like a machine that you have to keep in motion at all times on podcasts.
But I know a show where they would not go easy on me is the kind of show that I would like. What I don't like is the show where it's like, I mean, maybe I'll talk about that if we go on there. I mean, like, my sense is that all of it is, there's still like this huge force the vote sort of like ether.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
I don't mind going on that. I just, in with the whole thing with Bree was just that, like, I didn't realize that's what it was going to be. But if I know what it's going to be, I'll go on that show. Are you kidding? I'll happy to do that.
Oh man, then all of us have to get ready because when you go on, everyone gets taken along for the ride.
I don't think it'll be that big of a deal.
Yeah, neither do I.
Okay.
All right, the Tim Caucus. A new inauguration date should be sent, despite the inauguration being fixed in the Constitution. Did she not hear us contradict herself? The Tim Caucus. Do you know when the full interview with Dan Bauk will be on Peacock? It should be up there. It should be up there. SCK Land. How would you square your advocacy for the dissolution of the filibuster, yet praise the Texas Democrats for stopping legislation? Can't seem to have it both ways. Well, I am in favor of using any means that is legit to stop legislation. I am also in favor of the side that I want to have legislation passed to stop, to change those rules. I mean, if Texas wants to change the quorum rules for their House and Senate, and it's okay. I mean, I don't familiar with the Texas state constitution. By all means, go ahead and do it. I mean, I don't, the issue I have with the filibuster is that in addition to it being unconstitutional, or in my mind, and unnecessary, really, I just think it's unhelpful for the type of legislation I'm in favor of. I mean, Republicans are going to, without a doubt, and it's just a question of when. If the filibuster's, nuked now, they're going to have the opportunity to pass legislation all they want. And I actually think that's probably a good thing because A, I don't think they have much of an agenda, and B, it will make it quite clear what their agenda is. I mean, they had control of 3 houses, and what did they pass? Once they do the tax cut, like, what's left?
Yes.
They have no agenda.
Yeah. Well.
They're going to pass laws about, like, bathrooms.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the key point. Every serious piece of legislation they want to get done, they can get through reconciliation, which is what they have done. So nuking the filibuster, it's like culture war nonsense. And this is why Mitch McConnell was the most successful politician of the past 50 years, whatever the case may be, in terms of getting his legislation rammed through. They've done all they can do. And now it's the Democrats' turn to take the power that's right in front of them and maybe reverse and course correct so the democracy isn't entirely lost.
Let's see. Bruce Belden from True Anon podcast was at the Patriot Roundup thingy. Check out some of the True Anon Twitter for some dank photos and other footage. Really cool. What is the Miramar, or whatever Flynn was saying? Was this a successful coup? Oh, Myanmar. Never mind. Okay. Want to comment?
Oh, man.
Diane Morales debacle? Total cluster F. Yes. I mean, I think accurate assessment.
Cluster F, and also, like, from both ends, it seems like, go on, Nomi, go off.
Okay, one point I do want to make. And I'm glad that Ryan Grimm brought this up. I think the way that she handled it was like a PR nightmare. Let's just start with that. Like, I have said this from the beginning. I have not endorsed her for many reasons because I took 2 seconds to be like, who is she? And was she progressive before she was running? That's okay. I mean, I love that people change. And I think that lane was really important to have. But this is also a multi-person race, and having run a multi-person race and adding to the fact that it's a ranked choice voting what did happen in the last few weeks was a poll came out showing that I think she was second in terms of people's second choice, but not first choice. This is very important when you're looking at ranked choice. So, isn't it amazing that suddenly this whole thing pops up a month before the election? I'm not saying that her workers were not, I don't know the details, and no one does because they haven't been released of whether or not the workers of the campaign, just the details of the union negotiations. Now, the last part, which Diane, if she had handled this properly, should have just come up and said, and I've been in tough situations. I get it when you're in the final round of an election and you're like trying to breathe and you can't see and you have debates and you have matching funds and all this stuff going on. It's very hard. But she should have just said, if we didn't have a matching fund system, we have the city's campaign finance rules, which are very strict. They do not create a scenario in which in the final month of a campaign, there can be unionization based on these terms. It is not her rules, it is the city's rules, because everybody signs a specific contract when they're hired in which they are paid because it's taxpayer funds. So there's a story here, and I said it to a bunch of reporters who also do not in New York City understand matching funds rules because I've had to fight them on this before. They're very clear rules and you get audited. And the New York City Campaign Finance Board looks into these things. And so you can't just change the course halfway through when you've signed a bunch of contracts. The city does not allow, and I'm speaking very in a basic term, for those terms to be switched a month before the election, unless you're hiring new people. So, if there was unionization, it probably should have happened before the contracts were signed, not as you're a month out. Now, how she handled it, not great at all. But that's just my two sides.
Who were just trying to sabotage her campaign?
I don't know. I've heard some people from inside their campaign have mentioned things to me. I have no idea. It's not conspiratorial. This happens in campaigns all the time. Let's just be real. It happened in my campaign. There was somebody who was put on my campaign to sabotage my campaign, and and that's just the truth of it. But the press doesn't look at that.
I also think it happens when, there's a lot of idealism and leftist energy in one place, and there's passion. And if there isn't, I think, strong leadership at the top, these things happen. Not saying that was in your case, but that's kind of how it seems because of how Morales responded, at least in this instance.
And I think there's a professional, women on the left get targeted statistically way more than women in general, and also obviously men. And if they're independent women, like women who didn't come up with some sort of institution backing them, they have even more, this is part of our work at Matriarch, more of a target on their back. More women who run on their own, who decide on their own to run, get targeted with investigations, on the progressive side, with smear efforts, all of the above. Shirley Chisholm, AOC, Ilhan Omar, Lucy Flores, Cori Bush. I can go through a list of women who've all had very similar sorts of attacks on them. And I think we as progressives really need to kind of come to terms and understand that a little bit more. Again, does that mean how she handled it was not appropriate? Probably. I don't know what was happening internally. I don't know the professional level of her staff, which I think is more a thing to keep in mind than her as a leader. But I think as a progressive movement, we need to take these things into consideration, because we ask women to run, and then let me tell you, there are plenty of people in this race who've done some really shady things. Whether or not it ever gets out or investigated is another thing. But part of it has to do with they're not as progressive, they have way more money, or they have institutional support. So, I'll leave it there. Mic drop.
Mic has been dropped, ladies and gentlemen. Let's turn our...
Am I allowed to say that if I've done it? I'm just done. I'm not giving myself an applause. What was that?
Mic onto the ground.
Yeah, no, you got to do that. You
peg it against the air conditioner.
Tilt over. How about that? On Sunday, Scott Gottlieb, he was the former FDA. Where is he now?
Scott Gottlieb?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was head of the FDA.
And he was on Face the Nation talking about this question. The Biden administration is putting a lot of pressure on the World Health Organization. They are investigating. Apparently, there's a lot of intel that they are supposedly going through as to determine whether the COVID was a lab leak. Now, we should say that in terms of what they're investigating, there's no indication that that COVID is man-made, but that it could have been in a lab and gotten out of the lab in some fashion, right? There was a couple.
Yeah, and there was skepticism, I think, on my part and many progressives' part when it was Trump and his cronies pushing this talking point because it served this sort of anti-China narrative that they were trying to push. But, I mean, okay.
Wasn't the Trump one also, though, that it was...
It was a bioweapon.
It was a bioweapon.
Right.
And it wasn't, they never offered any evidence either. When Redfield was talking about it, it's like he's talking about it, but not offering any specific reasoning for thinking about that. And it was always a hypothesis that, like, the lab leak, that it was just a place where they're investigating this stuff and it managed to infect some people. That was always, like, scientifically, like, considered, but there was no evidence for it. So why would Trump want to talk about it? It's for clear, like, political reasons.
Right. Yes, the point is that, I mean, it was, I think I dismissed it at least like in pretty much entirely when it happened because of the messenger. But now there's like the investigation, at least the questions around it seem legit.
Well, let's also be clear here, right? I mean, I don't know. I mean, outside of like, you know, upping our commitment to having people stationed in China who are going to be monitoring this stuff and expanding sort of like some type of like, you know, cooperation to make sure that these are secure. The point of it is, I mean, it's largely, it seems to me, moot beyond that. And Trump was definitively trying to use this talking point not as a way of trying to figure out how we can secure laboratories that are studying this stuff, but to gin up like the extension of his fake trade war with China.
Biden's doing that to some extent too.
I think to a certain extent. We'll see. But here's Scott Gottlieb talking about the possibility of lab leaks.
So in terms of looking at this going forward, back to the title of your book, How We Can Defeat the Next Pandemic, your argument is it's important to know how this started in this case because there is this specific lab, but there have been also other cases where security has been lax and there have been leaks. And so it's important to figure out what happened here in order to kind of lock the doors tight to keep it from happening again.
That's right. These kinds of lab leaks happen all the time, actually. Even here in the United States, we've had mishaps. And in China, the last 6 known outbreaks of SARS-1 have been out of labs, including the last known outbreak, which was a pretty extensive outbreak that China initially wouldn't disclose that it came out of a lab. It was only disclosed finally by some journalists that were able to trace that outbreak back to a laboratory. So it's important to understand what the possibility is that this came out of a lab so we could focus more international attention on trying to get better inventories around these labs, what they're doing, better security, make sure they're properly built. We need to also look at public health through the lens of national security. This was an asymmetric harm to the United States. COVID hurt the U.S. a lot more than it hurt many other countries. And that's another thing I talk about in the book, looking at these kinds of risks through the lens of national security, including getting our intelligence services more engaged in this mission. Traditionally, we've relied on international conventions and scientists working together, multilateral agreements, to try to assess the risks and try to uncover these kinds of outbreaks. I think we also need to get better surveillance in place and use our tools of national security to help engage in that mission as well.
I mean, I think it's at the very least, you know, doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, our spy agencies that do this. I mean, we can just engage with the world more. Might be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what sows mistrust around this, I guess, on the left. I mean, there's multiple things happening here. We can get to the bottom of it, but I don't necessarily, as was just communicated there, these things happen. There doesn't need to be some sort of adversarial response because something happened. People in China died of COVID too. It wasn't because of any, I mean, I would think there's no evidence that it was deliberate, but that's what the right is going to claim. And this has been percolating, this Biden is soft on China narrative, and they're trying to make this a thing, and I think that's what they're going to run on in the midterms. And Biden is responding in his own way by being tough on China, at least rhetorically, which does have negatives in terms of how Asian Americans are treated in this country, and as well as, you know, what that signals to the blob in DC. But, you know, I think it's going to have to be a real tightrope when discussing this, where blame is not attributed, and you also emphasize that this happens frequently in the United States, and we're not going to blame China wholesale as if this was some sort of deliberate you know, attack. And that has to be front and center in the message. And I don't really trust the Biden administration to make that front and center.
Biden could also be a little strategic and use other countries in the EU to really take the lead on that, if that were the case. And simultaneously, I mean, China is not innocent in this, even if it were an accident. Several journalists went missing when they started to report, you know, get a little bit too close to investigating what was happening, whether or not how the government was responding to the COVID pandemic, which to me, that alone shows that, like, it was not intentional, because they were aggressively trying to cover up the fact that the pandemic existed and how they were responding to it. But, you know, let's also be real. I mean, if Biden wants to find an angle, it could be that. It could be, okay, great. So maybe you didn't do it intentionally. But the way you treated journalists in your own country who tried to investigate, they just disappeared. I mean, this is that alone is a huge story that we've just kind of, you know, glossed over in the past year. But Biden should, you know, find your EU allies to take the lead on this, because it doesn't create this multidimensional, I mean, it does, obviously it's EU, but it's not, you know, it's not two world powers going at it while Russia's like laughing in the corner or whatever the hell their angle is.
Moon in the lake. Whether it's the Civil War or the 2020 election, as long as you don't concede defeat, you never really lose. Militant apathy, contempt for democratic norms and social justice by liberals causes real damage. It's not just a philosophical disagreement. That was my argument when lefties were co-signing for Joe Rogan. Who he puts on his show and what he says matters. The most horrible parts of Jim Crow started with a racist president showing a movie in the White House. Simply cannot downplay the importance of what public figures say. Chowder with Crowder. All those Republicans calling for a coup are in for a rude awakening when their new woke CIA overlords make gay marriage mandatory.
You missed a real opportunity there.
What's that?
Chowder with Crowder.
Chowder with Crowder.
Yeah, you did it better.
Yeah. Doctors Crubworth. Kiddos love the trip to Disney, but even the mini Mar was overpriced. Just Kofivi Coop-op.
Co-op, right?
No, Coop-op.
That's what you tried to fit a lot into that.
Fascism is imperialism coming home to roost. Definitely rings truer in all of this context. Even if it was just ramblings right now, it's definitely moving past the goalpost to normalizing it. Sean from NorCal. Watching the crowd at the MAGA conference and the fantasy that Sidney Powell is living in, I'm wondering, is this a political conference or political LARPing? Was this just a brainstorming session to write Trump party fan fiction?
Pretty much, yeah.
And Jello does not, and pudding does not become gelatinous. All right, fair enough, whatever. Here is Will Sommer. He's from the Inky, right? Is he still from the Inky?
I thought he was at the...
Daily Beast, I think.
Yes.
Oh, he is?
Yes.
Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else.
Trust my gut.
Here is journalist Will Sommer from the Daily Beast. He went to the God and Country rally in Dallas. This is Is this part of the whole shindig thing there they got this weekend?
Sommer covers the QAnon beat. So
there it is.
He had to be there.
So here's Sommer, and he got ejected apparently.
I heard you're getting kicked out of this place.
I guess so.
Yeah, you weren't supposed to be here.
I bought a ticket under my own name.
Oh, yeah, that's okay, but you're here to infiltrate.
For what it's worth, officer, I'm happy to leave. I bought a ticket under my own name. I'm not... Oh, yeah, sure. There we go. Let's just pass it.
You're here to infiltrate.
I was on the list. I bought the ticket under my own name. There was no deception.
We refunded your money.
No, you.
Will says there's no deception.
You can refund my money now. I mean, that's fine. But I want to say there was no refund before that. But
Oh my God. Will said there's no deception.
Did you see the refund of your money before this?
it's not in my email. I can tell you, I got my thing on the list today, and that's all there. I mean, you know, I'm happy to leave now, but there was.
You're not on the list though, so that's.
But I was on the list. Okay, well, I don't know what to tell you. I talked to a lady yesterday, and she gave me the placard.
You were on the list, and then we saw.
Are you parked on property, sir?
Yeah, I'm gonna go
Okay.
to my car.
Okay.
I'm happy to leave.
Okay,
There was no.
I appreciate that. Do us a favor, just make sure you stay gone, okay?
Oh yeah. No,
Appreciate it. Where's your vehicle?
It's a little further down. It's a white SUV.
Good for Will.
Yeah, and you got this. There's no. He's not trying to fool anybody.
Yeah, that was pretty psychotic with that right winger just like laughing about there's no deception. It's just because Will Summer and like I guess a handful of other reporters really covered this QAnon thing from the start, and he was definitely at the forefront of it. So he's infamous to them for actually documenting their insanity, and it seems like they're trying to cancel him.
Why? What are they afraid of having the press there?
Well,
deception, obviously. Didn't you hear?
Deception, but that was how he got in. But apparently, he had a placard. I mean, he had a thing.
Yeah. Well, I guess why even allow press to be there if that's how you?
That's, I mean, Emma, you've been at these rallies before. It's so weird. Like they will circle you when they realize you're not one of them, and they'll just be like, "Fake news." It's crazy. Fake news. So, I mean, I'm sure he's used to dealing with these circumstances, but I mean, the bottom line is, yeah, why do you even have press? Remember when Michelle Fields got like attacked by Lewandowski, and we thought that was like what was really crossing the line, and just how Trump would like look at the press pen, the way that he kind of set it up at his rallies in 2016. I mean, that's what's led to this.
I still feel the spit on my face from that one.
Oh my God. Did you do it during COVID? Because I went to one during COVID and none of them had masks on. And I was like, I went to go get a test right away. I was like, if I don't have COVID after this, Phoenix, Arizona rally.
Most of my interactions with Trump supporters were largely very pleasant, but they're like the woman that spit on me was probably the same woman that would have gone after Will Summer at these QAnon situations. Like it's that cohort of like even most intense Trump supporter that does this kind of stuff. So
yeah, that was like the one in Phoenix was, I didn't realize at the time it wasn't a Trump rally, it was a QAnon rally. They were wearing the Q shirts and yeah, it was, but they swarm you. I was worried for my safety if I didn't have somebody with me watching from the outside. And if it wasn't across the street from a brunch restaurant in which they were all filming, like, what are these crazy people doing?
According to Will Summer, he received no refund. Since buying a ticket, I received no communications from the event's organizers aside from an email the night before giving me the conference location and the event schedule as all attendees received. So there it is. I guess Mike Lindell has a lieutenant, Dr. Douglas Frank, who has, you got to really vet your people. Because he's sort of given up the ghost a little bit here. Like, I'm not sure that you want your...
He's trying to keep a close circle of advisors.
Yeah, the problem is you gotta like ask them, like, do you have loose lips? Because here's Dr. Douglas Frank, who is basically letting everybody know what the MyPillow CEO's secret plans are.
He hired like Mission Impossible secret agent kind of people that broke into those facilities secretly, got into those computers where those IP and MAC addresses are, and took digital images of the computers proving that there were actually people executing the commands when those were taking place. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do.
It's not just a remote access. You can prove that there was actually, there were keystrokes on a computer at a certain time. You can prove that there are logs. So he hired people that are brilliant computer technical experts to go to these places and actually do it.
So he's talking about the Dominion voting machine data.
Yeah, I think, like, was it last week, guys, when Lindell tweeted that he'd taken possession of some of the voting machines and was flying them to various locations across the country? Maybe he bought a plane ticket right next to, so he could sit right next to the Dominion voting machines so that Hugo Chavez couldn't get into the cargo container.
I'm imagining him like you know how those men that date sex dolls? I'm imagining him like with a Dominion machine. I just can't quit you.
Might have been hard to get through security. Don't know if the Dominion voting machine had an American passport. Certainly had a Cuban one.
It's amazing to me how much they're going to feast on this. This is going to be 4 to 6 years of this. I think
does it shock you that a group of Republicans who followed a crazy right-wing cult of personality to form a cult of personality is now there's a subsect of them following a crazy right-winger who's just by the force of the conviction of what he says is leading them down some sort of trail?
I think I am surprised because I don't know that it's really that much of a subset. I'm really getting the sense that it's almost like a
that close circle of advisors.
Like the subset may be the people who are not.
Yeah.
And that this is, I just think that it is amazing to me. I guess we need a little more time, but it does feel like we are sort of like something was frozen in amber in that first week of January, and we're exact same place for a lot of people. It's interesting.
Well, it's a way to express aggrievement that is there's no way for them to comprehend that the country may not be the way they perceive it, and so it must be all a big conspiracy and a lie. And that's like this is the therapy, right?
I think they're out of lies. I don't think that this is creative enough. I think that Mike Lindell is gonna in 2 to 4 to 6 years, you say, Sam, you're a big fan of always telling us just these people are gonna die out. They're gonna die out soon. Their followers are gonna die out. And the people who know Mike Lindell from his ads, which are no longer on Fox, who 4 to 6 years now will remember the ads from Fox and this crazy conspiracy theory. It's like bringing back Pizzagate, which was just a couple years ago, or even Benghazi, frankly. I don't know. I just don't see it. I think that they're desperate. I think if their entire strategy is this and China, because that's Bannon's strategy, I don't think it's enough. But it might be enough because of what they've been able to do electorally through democracy, gerrymandering, etc.
Great. Jimmy Dorable. Sam, you can't have your pudding if you haven't finished your meat. Thank you. Angel, proof is in the putting. No, the proof is in the putting.
No.
As in putting your best foot forward sort of thing. Guess I'm wrong.
Yeah, there you go. We read that earlier, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
New Wrangler. Where does the bread pudding fall on the pudding spectrum? Because bread pudding is straight up based. Bread pudding is fantastic. Jonathan Armstead.
Especially when it's crispy. Like when there's crispy pieces of bread pudding, that's good.
I do like bread pudding. Anything with bread in it, I'm all for.
I forgot my breakfast this morning, so that talk is driving me crazy. Emma, a couple of weeks ago, so I have my cereal as my snack and my hard-boiled egg. I did not have my hard-boiled egg today, so. Emma, a couple of weeks ago, I asked about your gym and masks. Mine just emailed saying that as of today, someone had both shots. They can work without a mask. Mm-hmm. Yet, because of HIPAA, they aren't asking to see a vaccination card. Instead, we're on the honor system. I feel like that people who don't like wearing masks are the type who will lie, including one guy who once claimed he didn't have to wear a mask because he was a veteran.
Well, I went to a yoga class the other day. It was my first time in a really long time. It was a very emotional experience, I gotta be honest. And they did require to show your vaccination card or the Excelsior Pass, and you didn't have to wear a mask. It was not a full class, it was like by any stretch of the imagination, but it was a really crazy experience.
I don't know if it's HIPAA because restaurants are doing the same thing.
I would be surprised if it is HIPAA, because if you can volunteer to show, to show your
and I know Equinox is not that I can afford to go there, but the Equinox, the fancy gym, they're requiring vaccinations, and you can, I think, still go if you haven't been vaccinated, but you have to wear a mask and you have to show proof of your vaccine card to not wear a mask.
I was at a bar the other day. We were outside. There was 4 of us, and we were the only ones outside. It was freezing, and we were the only people outside. But in the bar, there was a vaccinated and non-vaccinated section of the bar.
Wow.
And there was you just had to basically, it was honor system.
Do other states have the pass, like, if you have an iPhone, there's an Apple Wallet, situation where you can put your vaccine card on your Apple Wallet. I don't know if other states have it, but New York does.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I know here in Puerto Rico, you have to wear a mask everywhere still. It's not great situation here at all. And I'm so done. Like, once you've been vaccinated for like 2 to 3 months, your like brain switches. You're just like, enough.
Chowder with quota. HIPAA governs what doctors and clinics can do with your info, nothing else. Like, so in other words, you can, that's my understanding too. You can, I think, you can show people whatever you want of your stuff.
But at my regular gym, I still just wear a mask.
Demian, out here in Seattle, we have a wonderful person running for prosecutor on an abolition platform. She's getting some great press. Her name is Nicole Thomas Kennedy, and I happen to know she's an incredibly cool and decent human. She's had a great interview with a stranger. I would recommend people check it out. Also, love it if you could speak to her. Seattle could... I lost it when you just replayed your thing. But maybe we'll do that, because the DA running here, what's her name, is...
Tahini Abushi.
Tahini Abushi is pretty good too. Maybe we could do a couple of DAs.
Yeah, I've done 2 interviews for our Peacock app about for our Peacock app, the whole thing.
Congratulations.
Yeah, well, actually, it's my Peacock app now. I've done 2 interviews on that race that I think are really good. There's a very, very well funded. I think front runner. It's really hard to gauge in this DA's race, especially when the mayoral race is getting such attention. But her name's Tali Farhadian Weinstein, and she's been taking a ton of Wall Street donations because her husband runs a hedge fund, has a net worth of over, now I'm forgetting if it's 400 million or 400 billion, which is fairly significant, but very rich.
400 million seems more likely. 400 billion is nobody has.
But I remember being shocked by it, and now, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. So anyway, he's very rich and has been funding her campaign, and she would not be a good choice. But there's,
And she got like the news endorsements, and she's leading in the polls. Yeah.
That was a good like moment where you kind of grasped how terrible my math skills are. I have difficulty discerning between those 2 numbers, which is not, it's like there's a hole in my brain.
It's a big difference. 400 billion, 400 million.
I'm glad that you are only finding out about this now after I've been working here for a while.
That's all right. We're almost like ideologically anti-math here. Robo Gorka, you'll know you made the right dough. You made the dough right if it proofs correctly, which you will only know by putting in the proofer and waiting. Oh boy. A square. Sam, this will all get worse, not only because the GOP needs to keep their voters in permanent state of grievance to take over the House and Senate, but also because it's a grift. Since Gingrich, it's been a big, big grift. The conspiracies that were fanned in the old radio shows used to move books, build the networks, set up TV personalities, were on TV and conferences like CPAC, and now the online shows, podcasts. Sometimes it's hard to stay hopeful, but you all give us light. Nomi, are the folks in PR as upset over Luma as the union is? It's a very tough, sad time for
Yes. So just some background on that. Did somebody from Puerto Rico just ask that, or Puerto Rican descent?
A square.
So as of today at noon, or midnight, was it? Maybe it was noon. I can't remember. I just saw 12. The power authority here, called PREPA, which is the Public Power Authority, the place that has been under austerity because the hedge funds and the Fiscal Control Board, which has basically sucked anything that's been generated out of the island into the Fiscal Control Board simultaneously as billionaires are moving here and not paying any taxes. This is just kind of what's happening. Puerto Rico's 3 times poorer than Mississippi, which is the poorest state. So just to put this in context, PREPA, the Public Power Authority, which Trump tried to blame for the power outages when really it had to do with, austerity, right? Like not being able to improve certain things, not, transitioning to solar, but the infrastructure was actually not bad. So they decided to privatize it with this new company called Luma. And the union here is very strong, has great, strong leadership. They found out that Luma was hiring union representatives from different parts. I'm not going to say which ones because it's just different union bust here. So they wouldn't be able to fight back. So they brought in union members from other unions in the mainland to union bust here because the union, the actual power workers union, was being told that they could just like relearn how to find other jobs, like being a nurse, which there's a shortage of here, like being a teacher, in which there's a shortage here because they've closed like 200 public schools. That's literally what they're being told. So it is extremely controversial. I was at 2 protests this weekend, a huge march with a bunch of religious leaders and progressive organizations. They occupy the Capitol, but I don't want to say it was too little too late, but it was, because it happened today. In a nutshell, austerity.
There you go. Aaron's not cool. I'd be embarrassed by the amount of money I'd pay to see a stream of Sam playing Red Dead 2. That is, I can't tell you how enticing that is, but maybe if there is a number floated around, that'll happen. Sam's butt joint. Nomiki, as a sex doll enthusiast who accepts the results of elections, I'd ask you to please not compare me to Mike Lindell. Have you read my email? Sam would be a 1337 game streamer. Just do it, man. Half the Discord on majoritydiscord.com. Can't wait for you to do it. I'm amazed that Mike doesn't sell Trump my body pillows. Tries to make it sound non-sexual, epically failing at it. Politerotica. Hey, Sam, Emma, and crew. I've recently discovered the Spotify playlist for the show's music, and I wish I had this to listen to the past year. Finally getting the strength to make and share music again. Now TikTok exists, and it's really great to get things out there and find other lefties. I've been listening to the same Kurt Vile song on repeat since last summer, and I'm beyond thankful that I have more music that reminds me of you guys. Have a great weekend.
I miss those days of playing music on the show.
Me too. But we can do that now, right?
Not on YouTube, but when we get back in the studio, we can do the
feed to the YouTube, right?
Yeah.
That's the way we were doing it before.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be pretty good, actually. I miss that a lot too. Bear at Home 2. Is today? Why does Sam keep ducking Destiny's Show? I'm not ducking Destiny's Show. What are you talking about? I'll do Destiny's Show. He had asked me a long time ago to debate college debt relief. I think it was, actually. I think. Don't quote me on that. But that was like a year or two ago. I haven't heard anything back. I think I said I would do it, and that was the last I heard. It's hard for me to just sometimes schedule. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I'm happy to go on Destiny's Show. Like I say, I'll go on anybody's show. The only shows that I would not go on was when McGinnis asked me to go on his show, and he wanted to be the moderator.
Right.
And I'm not doing that. I'm not going to give Gavin McGinnis an opportunity to sort of like jigger his career and make it like he's the moderator. I'll go on it if I can debate McGinnis and get some other stooge to be a moderator. But I'm not going there to make it like, I'm the left, and Joe Schmo's the right, and Gab McGinnis is just a guy with a show. Sorry, that's not happening. Although I think
when they change the terms, like that's the other thing, like with Hannity or what is that guy on Fox Business who used to have a CNN show? He's old and has like a toupee. You know who I'm talking about. He's gross. He used to want to Raw. Yes, Lou Dobbs, exactly. They just change the terms. You show up and you're going to debate something, and then they're like, and by the way, now we're debating, I forgot what it was, like something with Planned Parenthood and Margaret Sanger and eugenics.
I got no problem. I got no problem going on those shows either, because I got news for you. I'm changing the terms too when I show up.
Oh.
The last time I go on. I've got a first time, last time policy. I'm still blacklisted from Fox, I think, because of Hannity, but.
Really? Because I told him I would never go on his show again.
Oh no, I have been booked over the years, I would say probably half a dozen to a dozen times. And I think what happens is when it goes into the central booking, they have a list who's going to be on. Somebody from, I think, Hannity's show goes, that guy's not on the network.
I know a Fox News booker. I do. Haven't pulled that card yet, though.
Chef Kevin Sear. Don't know what that means. Bisquapo. Never thought Sam should talk about H3. You should watch Frenemies. You will love it. H3 covers YouTube drama, stuff you wouldn't watch, to be honest. Ask your daughter. She probably knows about them. I will ask her. Glass Seagull. One of the reasons conservatives love guns is the guns let them to think that all the changes in society they perceive and hate they are on some level, allowing them to happen. And at any time they can decide it's too much and start shooting people. In other words, guns are binkies for reactionaries.
Yeah.
Also, question, does it seem like gun lobby influence is burrowing into the left? I don't know. I mean,
this is as like the NRA is at its weakest point in 30, 40 years, right?
Yeah, but that's not the totality of it. Sam is the most handsome. Well, thank you. Sam, my homie, you single? If you come to Canada, I got some female friends interested in you. We can grab a few beers too and talk about life. I mean, if I come to Canada, you'll be the first person I get in touch with. Yeah, I assume you're in the phone book? Amy Jean from D. The robot is for their employee, lives in Sweden. The robot costs $4,000.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you're saving on the guy community.
Mm-hmm.
Stellar Vision. Ethan from H3 used to be a bit more reactionary. He has had Jordan Peterson on his podcast multiple times, but I've heard he's gotten better more recently. Emma, when are you going on to the Damage Report again?
I can't. It airs from 1 to 2 Eastern. This is when I do this show. I mean, John and I talk still quite regularly, and we're both sad about it, but there's nothing I can do.
Keister, Mike from Miami is wrong, and I have the receipts. What was he wrong about?
It's a bit general.
Apiniva, Sam isn't satisfied with his authoritarian climate control regime at the office. He needs to take over Nomi's AC as well. What's next, Sam?
How are you holding up, Nomi, by the way?
I have a fan on.
I'm
a little sweaty.
Jerry McLean. Ethan Klein is comedy adjacent. He was getting sued by Jake Paul for $50 million for his review on a New York Times article accusing JP of rape. It's hilarious. I don't know any of what you just said.
I'm thinking of finding the Pauls because they're here and just harassing, because they bought some $10 million house here for capital gains, the tax. I'm thinking of harassing them and really, I need some support though. So if anybody out there in Puerto Rico wants to come and back me up, because I have a feeling it's not going to go well. They were arrested because they were riding some sort of tractors on the beach, and it was a private. There are no private beaches here. This is all in the last few weeks. Anybody who watches the internet knows what I'm talking about.
Ethan Klein of H3 has shown support for the Palestinian people, has criticized the Israeli government for their crimes. Hilla, his wife, is Israeli. Should try and get them on your show for Fun
Nice.
Fridays. Left of the box. There is a horrific, heartbreaking news from Canada that's not getting enough attention in the media. A mass grave, I read about this, of children was discovered near a former residential school in Kamloops, BC. I'd like to call in and talk about it more so more people are made aware. Canada needs to be held accountable for what has happened and what is currently happening. They were, I believe, if this is the story, it is a mass grave of Indigenous children.
Yeah. Over 200 Indigenous children. Trying to find it. Yeah, 215 Indigenous children.
At a residential school that I think closed in the 90s.
Yeah. And I mean, there's just tales of over 150,000 Indigenous children who were taken away from their families and put into institutions like this. There was rampant abuse, and a lot of them died. And they're finding they just found the remains of over 200 of them. It's horrible.
It's what, like, this is the kidnapping part of genocide.
Mm-hmm.
Just kapoop. I don't know. It's like an end of days cult. When it gets doesn't happen, the resolve gets stronger. I was just going to say, I was going to write that today. They are like a Melanistic cult. That day shows up, and then it just like, we just had math wrong, but actually it's more clear this is happening. Spicy take on detransitioners regarding 60 Minutes segment from last week. Disclaimer that as a transsexual, I feel empathy for individual detransitioners, and this is more about the detransitioner movement. These kids seem to have gotten surgeries and hormones way faster than most trans people I know, myself included. And it's pretty obvious that it's partially because they or their parents were able to pay for their care out of pocket. Most trans people in America are accessing care through a rickety apparatus made up of overburdened public clinics, GoFundMe, or Weasley insurance plans that make you get tons of letters from mental health professionals to prove you're trans enough to deserve care. These kids got to cut to the front of the line because their rich parents got care perhaps before they were ready or without them making sure it was right for them. And now, since they signed away their ability to sue their surgeons, they're instead trying to assuage their transition regret by making the rest of us wait longer. It's just the icing on the cake that they've become the pet cause of the trans conservatives who use them for fear mongering. I got a really helpful email. I'm trying to see if I can find it. I can't find it at the moment, but it was someone who is contemplating transitioning. And they use he at the moment. And, here it is, actually. He said the data is not always the best, as transitioning is a very individualized process, making it hard to compare, and detransitioning is a rare phenomenon only concerning a small subset of the already small group people seeking transgender health care. But he sent some data from UK hospitals. An overview of regret rates in UK hospitals presented at the 2019 meeting of the European Professional Association for Transgender Health. 0.47%, 0.47%, that is half of 1% of people who had undergone transgender healthcare had voiced regret or detransitioned. In 13 out of 16 of these cases, it's about 81%, the detransitioning was only temporarily. The main cause for detransitioning was lack of social acceptance. So there is an extraordinarily small number of people who express regret, and the problem just comes down to this. It's like, when you show that and it's not balanced, you are really messing up the editorial message that's coming through. That's just the bottom line. I mean, like, you know, again, I think I used, like, you know, if I just do a story on people getting struck by lightning while playing softball and never ever report, you know, and contextualize the fact that, like, there are millions upon millions of people play softball every day that don't get struck by lightning. But I just present the report of 6 people who get struck by lightning when they're playing softball. It's going to create a misunderstanding of what the dynamic is. And in this instance, the idea, like, you know, to carry out the analogy, softball would have to be like a very tenuous thing to do in society. And it would be very difficult. And there would actually be people who were killed because they were playing softball, not by lightning, you know, like, I don't know how to carry out the metaphor, but I think people get the idea. This is I
mean, it's also like, it takes such emotional courage to be able to step up and really, in this society, in this world, at that age, in our nuclear family culture that we have in most places in this country. So for them, for the right wing to be like, it's not accurate, or, you know, they decide to, it takes so much to get to that point that it's just statistically, you know, not likely that's the case. I don't know. I mean, that's just my belief, that I feel.
I mean, look, the data is what the data is on this. But my point is when you do a report on a tiny, tiny, tiny subset, it needs to be really clear that this is a tiny, tiny subset. Like, this is like a, you know, a contrarian take, except for there's no predominant take that's out there that can offset the understanding of people. And so I just think it is, I'm not saying that this kind of information should be banned. What I'm saying is that these things need to be presented in a way that actually gives you the true story, which is that the genuine danger exists for people who are transgender. The genuine danger exists for people who are unable to access those services. All right, we got time for 2 more IMs, and then we're getting out of it. There's practice. It has nothing to do with gun lobbies influencing the left. I know plenty of people on the left that aren't for demand-side gun control, none of which are on their payroll. I am against it myself. Gun control is increasingly being seen as a technocratic and carceral method of controlling violence. My personal reason is that prohibitions are never applied equally across lines of marginality. This sank in when I first looked into the details of stop and frisk. And the final IM of the day. Shoot. Mark Monkey, hi guys, as a medical worker, asking people if they're vaccinated isn't against HIPAA. HIPAA is only for medical personnel not sharing personal information. It says nothing about our patients or authorities, I should add. They can ask and should. Tomorrow, Carol Anderson talking about the Second Amendment will be joining us. And check out Nomi's show. Emma, Nomi, Matt, Brendan, great job today. See you guys tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bar, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I get somewhere the choice was made, for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive.